Good morning. Welcome to this question and answer webinar, which will focus on finances and state aid in relation to our call for proposals, the third call for proposals of the Interreg Central Europe program. Let us start by introducing ourselves. I am Helga Portelli. I am the head of the finance unit at the Joint Secretariat, and together with me, I have my colleagues who will introduce themselves.
My name is Alexandra Kulmer, and I'm a finance manager at the JS.
And I'm Luca Ferrarese. I'm the head of the Joint Secretariat, and today I'm here to answer specific questions on state aid.
You have been asked and given the opportunity to send us questions related to finances and also to state aid beforehand. We have received quite a number of questions, and we will go through all these questions and try to tackle them as best as possible and to answer all your questions that you might have when preparing your project budget. In case that you have further questions, we ask you to use the live chat on this tool where you can pose your questions, and then we will answer them after we would have answered the questions that we received prior to this session. In case you have any problems with posing your questions on this live chat, please feel free to send it also to our info address, which is info@interreg-central.eu. I will read out the first questions that we received from one of the applicants. And the question is, should external expertise and services costs related to workshops or working group meeting be planned within the thematic work packages or be allocated to the predefined activity titled in the work package communication?
So to answer these questions, go back also to the content part of your application. So when you're asked under which work package to allocate specific costs, you would first need to know under which work package you allocate the respective deliverable for these workshops or meetings. So if the meeting is targeted at an internal communication or an internal project management task, like a steering committee meeting, this deliverable would be needed to be allocated to work package management. If the workshop or meeting is targeted to develop deliverables or outputs, also with stakeholders, this deliverable would be allocated to a thematic work package. But if the purpose of this meeting or workshop is to transfer outputs to a wider audience, then this deliverable would be under work package communication, under the activity, for example, targeted events. So, and depending where you allocate the activity in which work package, also the costs would need to be allocated to this respective work package. So the cost for organizing the meeting would be under budget line 4 in this respective work package and linked to the deliverable that you foresee for this meeting or workshop. We have received a further question, which is also related to this. And the question is, should the travel cost of target group representatives, like decision makers or policy makers, to the final conference be allocated to work package communication under the activity public events?
As Alexandra was saying, this is very much related to the previous question. So once we understand under which work package this activity, this deliverable is included, we allocate the costs. The example here is the final conference. So one have to see what is the objective of the final conference. Is the final conference in order to transfer outputs to a new audience? If this is the case, then the costs the activity per se should be included under the work package communication. And of course, the costs related to such event should also be included under this work package. We would like to point out something here, that it is not the intention of the program to pay for travel costs of all the participants. It is important to know that, of course, if we are targeting to a new audience, this audience should have the wish to get to know more. And so if there is no active participation, active role of an external, the costs should not be in reality covered by the project. Going to a next question, which we have received, also very much related to this. The travel costs of associated partners planned under budget line 4, external expertise and services costs, within the relevant project partner's budget should be allocated to the respective activity on stakeholder involvement in thematic work packages. Is this correct?
So again, this depends in what way you want to involve the associated partners, but it's correct that if you want to involve the associated partners in developing the outputs, in contributing to deliverables, then the travel costs of the associated partners would be allocated under budget line 4 in the thematic work package where you plan the respective deliverables. And again, one more question related also to this topic, which we received is, should the cost for the participation of a representative of the associated partner in the steering committee meeting be planned within the activity related to steering and monitoring of the project implementation in work package management?
The answer to this question is a pure yes. The steering committee meetings are planned under the work package management, and therefore the costs should also be allocated to this work package. Another question that we have received beforehand is a rate of management cost of about 20% of total costs at project level acceptable or not?
Well, this question, there is no clear yes or no, because the program doesn't define a percentage which is acceptable for the work package management. When you define the budget, this always needs to be based on the activities, on the deliverables you foresee in a work package. So first you plan your work plan, you see how many activities, how many deliverables you have, and then you plan accordingly your budget. So for all the meetings, for all the activities that you need to do in this work package, you will plan the budget accordingly. And this depends, of course, in the work package management, on the size of the partnership, on the number of meetings, of tasks you are foreseeing. However, 20% from our experience seems to be could be a reasonable percentage for the work package management. We continue with the next question. This is a very specific question for private lead applicants. So the question is, in case of a private lead applicant, is the audit report for the last financial year issued by an approved external auditor required, even if the national law does not require companies to have their accounts audited at the end of the financial year?
As we know, lead applicants, which are private, so private lead applicants have to provide additional documentation. And one of these documents is an audit report, which is issued by an external auditor. The documents that are required are obligatory, and they are required at program level. So it is a program requirement. And even though there is no such requirement at national level, such documentation needs to be provided anyway. I would like to highlight that if the required documentation is not provided, then the project would be regarded as non-eligible and will not proceed into the assessment process. Going to another question that we have received, this is a question related to investments. And the question is there a suggested limit for investment cost per partner, percentage of the project budget?
To answer this, again, there is not a general rule about the percentage for investment costs in a project or of a specific partner. It's important also to highlight that the Interreg Central Europe program is not a major investment program. So all investments should be linked to pilot actions, which have a demonstration purpose. So the pilot character needs to be always respected. You can plan pilot investments as part of your pilot actions. However, they should be rather seen as small-scale investments and always highlighting this demonstration and need to be justified in line with the foreseen results and outputs of the project. Maybe just to mention that investments can include costs under budget line 5, so equipment, and also budget line 6, infrastructure and works. And also to mention that if these costs are above 15,000 euros, you need to provide an investment specification as a separate work package where you can really describe why you need this investment for your pilot action. Then the next question is also related to investments. And it is, if an investment is only to be partly financed by the program, how should these costs be included in the application form?
Okay, if we have an investment which will be only partly financed by the Central Europe program, then in the application form, we only include the cost that will be covered by the program. However, it is important that in the work plan, it is already mentioned that the program will only finance part of the investment and include information that the rest will be financed through other sources. Questions, we've received a number of questions related to staff costs. Some questions that we have received related to staff costs are very much related more to the implementation rather than to the preparation of the application form. However, I think it is also very important that we answer such questions for you to understand how to prepare the budget. And the question related to the first question was, in case of private entities as project partners, how can the staff costs of the directors, not being employees of the company, be reported in the project? If not, the 20% flat rate is selected for staff costs.
To answer this question, maybe we would like to explain that there are two options for reimbursement of staff costs. So it's either the flat rate of 20% of direct costs, or it is to report the staff cost on a real cost basis. So in this question, it says that this 20% flat rate is too low to cover the real staff costs. However, if you want to report the staff costs based on a real cost basis, you need to provide all the documents which are required for staff costs in the audit trail. And this includes for all staff members, which should be reported in the program, in the project, that you would need to provide the employment document as one part of the audit trail. So if the director is not an employee and does not receive salary payments, and you cannot provide all the documents for the audit trail, then it will not be possible to report the staff costs of this director on a real cost basis. So the only option would be to opt for the 20% flat rate. However, if he selects the 20% flat rate in the application form, this means for all the staff members, the staff costs will only be reimbursed based on this 20% flat rate on direct costs. So this has to really be decided in the application phase and should be well decided. And is also the case, especially for the one-man companies, for which it's also very difficult to report staff costs on real cost basis. So then it's better to take this 20% flat rate. So we continue with staff cost question. The next question is, in the implementation manual, the calculation of the hourly rate is explained. In the example concerning staff working part-time with flexible number of hours, it is calculated with 1,720 hours per year. Does this number also apply to staff working full-time?
I think with this question, first we have to make sure that we understand what we mean by full-time and part-time. When we speak about full-time and part-time, we are always speaking with regard to the project. So it could be that a person works on a part-time basis with the institution. Let us say the person works 20 hours a week for the institution, but all those 20 hours are worked for the project. In that case, the person is to be regarded, the employee is to be regarded towards the project as a full-timer. So full-time working in the project or part-time working in the project. So in the case that there is a person working full-time for the project, then the costs are 100% eligible. The 1,720 hours is there to calculate, in the case that a staff does not work 100% for the project, then there are different options how to calculate staff costs, but here we were asked specifically about the 1720. And the 1720 is there to calculate the hourly rate for those working part-time on the project with a flexible number of hours per month. Before we continue to see the questions that we have received prior to this session, I just would like to clarify that we will go through all the questions that we have received beforehand, and then we will start answering the questions that are coming in through the live chat. So going to the next question, also related to staff costs, full-time professors would also participate in the project if funded. May their staff costs be considered in the application as well?
So the answer to this question, again, is very much related to what we said before. For all the staff members for which staff costs should be reported in the project, you need to fulfill all the requirements in accordance with the implementation manual, where you see what are the documents to provide for the audit trail. So you can report a staff that is already previously employed in the beneficiary organization, like a professor at the university, or you can hire contract new staff for the project after the project started. So this is there is no limitation on reporting existing staff from the beneficiary organization. However, you need to see if for the university professor you can provide all the documents required, like a project assignment document, and this necessary documentation. The next question also still relates to staff costs. No, it's already going to travel costs. So we are at travel and accommodation costs. And the question is, how can we estimate travel costs and accommodation costs of the project? Can we calculate air ticket costs and for some distances also use the private cars, including fuel costs and driver costs? Are there any financial limits for hotel accommodations? Can we apply per diems according to the national legislation limits?
So here we have more or less 4 questions related to travel and accommodation costs. Of course, travel and accommodation costs should be estimated according to how many meetings and workshops or field trips you have foreseen in your work plan. So there should be an estimation. You already know from now, more or less, how many meetings, how many travels you would need throughout the project. And there should be, each partner should calculate more or less, do an estimation of the travel costs. Yes, you can calculate air tickets. It is possible to travel by air. It is also possible to travel by private car, by train. You have to take into, when implementing the project, then you have to take into consideration all the possible means of transport, and the most economic option has to be chosen. Another question was about the hotel accommodation and if there are any financial limits. We do have at program level an official list which lists the rates for the hotels which are acceptable. So it is the maximum rate that is acceptable for the hotels at country level. And this is to be abided by when you are implementing the project. And the next question was about the per diems, whether these can be applied according to the national legislation. And the answer to this is yes. One has to follow national or internal rules regarded to per diems. And if there are no such rules, then the program also has an official list of the daily rates. And in case there are no national or institution rules, then these rates have to be applied. So the next question relates to national control costs. How should the costs for the national controllers be calculated? In our case, Austria.
For such a specific question on national specifications, we would recommend you to contact the national contact points, which we have in each of our member states. So for Austria, there is you can find the contact of the national contact point on our website, as for all the other countries. And the national control cost for Austria will be around 7% of the expenditure. So, but please with the national contact point such national specific questions. And then we come to the last question that we have received prior to this question and answer session. The last question also already relates more to the implementation phase of the project, and it is in the application form, the budget per work package and per reporting period needs to be defined. What if we need, for example, in work package T1 or in period 1, more budget than written in the application form? Is it possible to shift the costs such that additional costs can be funded?
Okay, to this question, one of course has to, when preparing the budget, to as much as possible create a realistic budget. However, during implementation, we know that there will be some things which were not foreseen or some delays or whatever. And at program level, there is a degree of flexibility that is acceptable. So you would have a degree of flexibility at work package, budget line, and partner budget. There are some restrictions, but yes, the answer is it would be possible to have a different, not the exact budget how it is in the project. However, the ERDF amounts can never be surpassed. And another thing is that for the reporting periods, there is no particular flexibility. However, if you, for example, foresee 200,000 for period 3, but in reality you spend 220,000, there will not be any cuts or anything. This is possible to report it. I think that is it with regards to the questions that we have received beforehand. And now we can have a look at the questions that we have received through the live chat.
Maybe there was a first question about EMS, about inserting the administration costs. So we have already answered that you should contact our help desk for EMS, which will help you with any technical issues in EMS at any time. Maybe as a small hint for this, maybe check if, because you have to select the flat rate for administration costs on the top of each partner budget page. We have even also provided a specific webinar on how to insert budget in EMS. So
I don't understand.
You could maybe go through this webinar to see how to insert the partner budget. And there it's also explained that you have to tick this box for flat rate of the administration costs. If this is ticked and you still do not see it's not automatically calculated, then please contact the help desk for EMS.
So there is a question, I will read it out. Please, for your opinion, will it be possible evaluation if the project include other regions in rollout of the project. For example, there will be 5 project partner countries in the project. In rollout activities, 4 new countries from Interreg Central area will be invited. Some external costs for travel could occur. And the answer to this question would be, yes, it is possible that you would have new other institutions which are interested in your project, and then if you need them to have an active role and participation in any meetings or in other events, then the costs would be eligible under the budget line 4, budget line external expertise and services. So another question came in. In case of cooperation between public bodies for subcontracted activities, should we distinguish the costs foreseen for the subcontractor in the specific budget lines?
You mean
Yeah, it's, if I may,
yeah,
it's like cases for in-house or other type of cooperation between public authorities. So the answer is yes. You have to report at the level of each budget line, as it is for in-house companies. This is especially rather often in some countries like Italy.
Mm-hmm. So just to make it, in such a case, then the costs should not all go under budget line 4, external expertise and services, but should be according to the type of costs. So according to the type of costs, they should be allocated to the different budget lines. So if it is the staff of that public body where there is disagreement, then it should be allocated under staff costs. Travel costs of this public authority, then the cost should be included under travel costs. Some more questions coming in? In-kind contribution. Is it possible to involve existing infrastructural staff, official of the university, in the contribution of one partner? I think here we have to understand how the program really works. You will have to, in the beginning, always incur 100% of the costs. The costs will be included in a partner report and in a project report. And then you will get the equivalent ERDF amount. So 85% for some of the partners and 80% for the other partners that have this co-financing. So we do not have, it's not a matter of having a cost and saying, I will put in part of the costs via my staff costs. You have to first incur the costs and you will get reimbursed according to the co-financing rate.
Maybe related to this, because we just had a similar question for a running project. Mm-hmm. So you also have to put all the costs on the accounts of the project, which was also related to university staff. So even if it's staff that is already employed in the university, in the kind of internal staff, if you want to report costs for this staff in the project, you would need to put these staff costs also on the project accounts.
Good. We have another question. Is there any explanation in the manuals, or can you confirm this opportunity of contribution? Okay. Yes, in our manuals, this is all explained how our co-financing is done. Next question. For what period should we explain the leverage of funding, amounts of fund leveraged based on project achievements during or after the project, or both?
I can answer this. This is not really a financial question. This is more, let's say, a content question, because we're talking about funds leveraged by project results. So we don't set any specific, let's say, time limit for leveraging funds, because this is like an estimation, since it is very likely that project achievements will leverage funds after the project is finished. So what we ask you to include in these additional indicators in the application form is the information, it's an estimation of what you expect to be leveraged. But this estimation needs nevertheless to be accurate or a little bit realistic, because when you will then finish your project, you will have to submit a final report in which you will have to further explain and give maybe evidence of the funds leveraged through your project. So as I said, this is an estimation. There is no time such an estimation, so it can be also 3-4 years after the project end, but has to be realistic, because then you will be requested to confirm such estimation when your project finishes. Yeah, let's see if there are other questions.
At the moment, there are no
maybe
new questions.
Since I can mention also something else with regard to state aid, since it seems today we didn't get really questions on state aid, but still there are some questions which normally come. And for example, it's in Interreg projects, in Interreg world, it's very often, like in Central Europe, to have a case in which one member state is granting aid to a beneficiary which is located in another member state. So very often we receive questions like, I'm located in Germany and I have already received 200,000 of the minimis support in my country. Can I still receive the minimis support in Central Europe? The answer is yes, because the member state granting aid in Central Europe is not Germany, but it is Austria. So you have another 200,000 that you can accumulate from Austria. Then another question is that there is involvement of economic operators, economic actors in project activities, like a company receiving a service for free within the project. And in this case, the question very often is, how can we account state aid given to this company which is receiving a service for free within the project? This is what we call indirect state aid. And in this case, you have to apply national procedures, and your contact points are prepared to give you information on the country-specific requirements you have to apply in order to deal with this kind of indirect state aid. Of course, we try to keep to the minimum, but unfortunately, the obligations coming from on state aid are coming from EU regulation that we have to apply. That's, I would say, it for state aid.
There is another question which says, just to confirm, we would like to include an associated partner from Belgium. Can we include the budget for persons who deliver training and the costs of their travels in the budget? There is another question. It is, of course, possible to include the costs of an associated partner related to their travel to some meetings or trainings to our that are organized by the project, and these should be allocated under budget line 4, budget line external expertise and services costs, and it should be included in the budget of the partner, the financing partner to which this partner is associated. We have to always keep in mind that when we do subcontract the associated partners to conduct training or whatever, public procurement procedures should always apply. Another question regarding the total budget. Is there an estimated reasonable percentage also for communication? Like what we said for the other work packages, like work package management, like what we said for the other budget lines, we do not have a threshold. We do not have a maximum percentage. Your budget should always be related to you are actually conducting in the project. It's one thing where a project is mainly, it has a lot of, for example, communication costs, and it is the type of projects where you need to communicate all your outputs, all your deliverables, and so on. So you can't really say it should be 20%, it should be 10%, it should be 5% of the total budget. It also depends how big the budget is. So a budget should also always relate to your foreseen activities and deliverables.
The question goes in the direction if it's possible, because there is this website on our Interreg Central Europe website, which offers the space for projects to present their contents. And if it's possible to have a second platform or website, the answer is that for communication purposes, there is only one project website, which is hosted by the Interreg Central Europe program website. So you're not supposed to create another website presenting your work and your daily work in the project. However, if there is a platform as an output, as a tool, which is, for example, I don't know, a matchmaking platform or an innovation network platform, such an online platform could be created within the project as a output, as a tool that is the result of an activity. So this is possible, but not for pure communication purposes to create a separate second parallel website, because the purpose of this website on our program website is to save the costs for creating all these single project websites. And therefore, it's not efficient to create a second communication website. And it's also important to mention that all the project partners or partner institutions are then supposed also to link from their institutional website to this project website on our program website.
There is one more question. We, a project partner, are in Germany and we will subcontract 2 contractors located in Germany. As I understand, we have to calculate the VAT of 20%. Can we budget for it also? Yes, VAT is eligible. However, you have to check if your institution can recover VAT. If it is possible for the institution to recover VAT, then this cost would not be eligible because it would be considered as double financing. You get the VAT from the project and you also get refunded back the VAT. So in that case, VAT is not eligible, but if your institution cannot recover such costs, cannot recover the VAT, then the cost would be eligible and it should be included in the budget, in the application form. There is another question.
Maybe I would like to mention also something else on this question on VAT. You say that you will have contractors from Germany, but you cannot really predict now whether they would be in Germany or not, because subcontractors have to be selected through public procurement. And therefore, you might not exclude that you have the winner of the procurement procedure, which is located in another country, therefore with a different VAT regime.
In our project, we will develop an online platform that will allow businesses, universities, and users to engage in transnational collaboration teams and jointly develop solutions. The platform will be developed by one of the project partners, but all of the project partners will contribute to the content and will jointly finance its operation costs during and after the project. And now maybe we first stop here, and Alexandra wanted to say something about this.
Yeah, just because it's mentioned that it's jointly financed and the program doesn't allow shared costs.
Mm-hmm.
So it depends how you want to organize this. If you have separate costs incurred by each partner for specific services related to this platform, or if they contribute with their staff to program parts of the platform, this would be okay. But if you contract jointly the preparation of this platform or the operation costs and share the costs of this contract through invoices, this would not be in line with the program rules. So shared costs are not allowed, and there's also information in the implementation and application manual how to understand this shared costs.
Okay. Then the next part is the platform offers virtual collaboration and open innovation tools to users, including businesses, free of charge. Is this platform to be considered as indirect aid for third parties?
For answering this question, we had to say that the occurrence of state aid, either direct or indirect, is very much linked to many factors. One of them is that this platform is made available to a wider audience of companies, of business. So it has to be judged on a case-by-case basis whether this platform will, at the end of the day, result into an aid to the business which is receiving the services for free. So it is not, even if you are offering services for free, it depends whether it is state aid or not. So what we recommend is that you highlight this potential risk of state aid in the state aid declaration. There are sections in the state aid where you can explain at the level of each work package and the level of each deliverable what a potential risk of indirect state aid. And then on also considering this information, the program will assess, looking at your application form, whether this is in reality a state aid problem or not. We had cases in which in the state aid declarations, applicants were presenting a possible potential risk of state aid, but then we came to the conclusion that according to the applicable legal framework, this was not state aid. So please, in doubt, just put the information on your state aid declaration, then we judge whether this is in reality state aid or not. As regard, just to complement the answer from Alexandra on share cost, please, if you have some specific question, you can also come back to us afterwards on specific cases. We can further help you through our help desk.
There is one more question. Do we have to outline the co-financing rate in the budget plan? And if yes, how and where? With regards to the ERDF amount, this is set. So we have 80% for those coming from, for partners coming from Italy, Germany, and Austria, and 85% coming from the other countries included in our program. And this, when you are including your budget in the application form, automatically it is calculated according to where the partner comes from. With regards to the co-financing, to the national co-financing, in the EMS, in the budget section, you also have to include information where the co-financing is coming from, whether it is coming from own funds, from other resources. For example, if we take maybe a public body in Italy would get funds, the co-financing from the Fondo di Rotazione, then this has to be included also in the application form. And there is a specific section in the EMS where the co-financing amount is to be described and included. There are no additional questions coming in, so maybe we could close this webinar here. And I would like to remind you that this webinar has been recorded and it will be available on our YouTube channel as from tomorrow. Thank you very much, and we really wish you good luck in the preparation of the application form.
Thank you.
Thank you.